It was back in like March 26th, I believe, was the first fight card that I got to be a part of for RUF 46. And at the time, I was managing 2 fighters, a pro and an amateur. And so I was only acting as a manager and doing nothing else. So I actually had to go ahead and submit an application to the Gaming Commission. I got my manager's license, including a trainer's license too. I was working with Fior's Endorphin Factory, which is absolute fantastic gym located here in Lake Havasu City. And shout out to you, Fiorella. So I was doing that primarily. So I got to finally be behind the scenes of like this whole huge MMA fight event. And it's a mix of pros and amateurs as well. And so it was just so wild to be a part of, because I've only ever been to an event once, and that was purely as a spectator. This time, I was behind the scenes at the weigh-ins. That's actually how I met MMA Stalker, because they were doing the tail of the take and photography and everything for all the fighters and whatnot. And that's how I met them and got a connection with them. And then we got to meet like the Gaming Commission. We were figuring all that stuff out. I got to watch how they set up, do the weigh-ins. They did the Faceoffs. It was freaking awesome. It was so cool. I met so many great people there. I met Yamis Wildman. I met Marcus McGee. I met so many other people. It was pretty freaking dope. It was dope. But yeah, it was. And then the actual fight event itself. The actual fight event itself was fucking awesome. Unfortunately, in that event, we did come home with two L's, unfortunately. But hey, it's part of the fight game. You win some, you lose some, and it is what it is. They still fought their asses off, and they're warriors. But yeah, it was so cool to be a part of the whole event. Got there at the theater, the Celebrity Theater out in Tempe. I was literally inside the cage, just kind of walking around it, feeling it. First time ever being in an actual cage like that. It was so dope. Walking around, seeing the behind the scenes, the backstage area where you had the judges, the referees, all this other stuff, and people from the Gaming Commission. They're just breaking down all the rules and whatnot. So like you can't use elbows as an amateur, but as a pro you can. So they were explaining like a full breakdown of all that stuff, and it was super cool. Super cool to be a part of. I got to meet so many great people. I met Jason, who's the matchmaker for RUF Nation. Shout out to you, man. I met CJ, who's one of the owners of RUF, who's also freaking fantastic. And I'm gonna try to get you on. I'm gonna try to get you on here one day soon. But yeah, it was so cool. What was I saying as well? Yeah, I got to meet them, meet the owners of RUF Nation, all like the behind the scenes stuff and everything. And then moving into RUF 47, I cut ties with the pro fighter, and then now I'm just managing my amateur fighter, which is Patrick Boffman. I had him on my podcast. I think he was like episode 14, episode 15. No, episode 14. Yeah, he was on like episode 14. He's such a great fucking guy. He's a badass. And he's a warrior. He doesn't give up. That's for sure. And so we were part of RUF 47, but this time as RUF 47, I was doing the media coverage. So now that I'm working with MMA Stalker, I was helping them set up photography equipment for the tail to take, doing all that stuff. I had my own separate station where I was doing pre-fight interviews with the fighters. And unfortunately, because it was the first time with the learning experience of trying to do that with like everybody, we didn't anticipate all the sound and the noise from the weigh-ins itself to overpower our microphone, and so, but now we'll know next time. But it was still cool. I got to interview all the fighters. I interviewed almost every single fighter. Marky Marcotes, who I had on my podcast, and who was also on Throwing Hands with ASAP Sports Network, which I'm a co-host for. I talked to Marcus McGee. I talked to Yamis Wildman. I got to talk to Terrence Jean-Jacques, which Yamis Wildman and Terrence Jean-Jacques were actually the 2 finalists for the Road to One heavyweight tournament finale. And they and just to give a little background, RUF Nation is actually owned by One Championship, which is based out in Singapore. One Championship is like one of the top 3 MMA promotions in the entire world. It's like UFC, Bellator, and One Championship are all the top 3. And I talked to all of them, and Terrence and Yamis, they were competing for $140,000 contract for One Championship to fight out in Singapore. So this was a huge event. They had a trophy. They had everything. It was so dope. Rich Franklin was there at the weigh-ins of RUF 47. I even talked to him. I gave him my card. I was like, I would love to have you on. and I was just talking with them, and he was such a cool dude, super chill, and everybody wanted to talk to him too. So he was like all over the place. But I was doing the media coverage for the weigh-ins, got to record stuff and everything. It was so cool. And then for the actual fights themselves, I had to get there like a couple hours early, go ahead and start setting up my equipment, which I actually used my own camera here for the event. And I was literally cage side the entire time for RUF 47. So the octagon, say, is right here. I literally stood right here next to the octagon. That was where, right by the entrance where they walk in from. I had my camera. I'd record them walking in, and then I would record them as they're going in, and they're kind of announcing each fighter. I would literally get crowd reaction. I would, when the decision would be made for each fight, when each fight ended, I'd be getting in the cage, go ahead and record it, then hop out of the cage, and it'd just be a constant back and forth. And there was a big crowd from Lake Havasu City, too, because we had 3 fighters that fought on RUF 47. First one was Brandon Elizondo, if I remember his last name. Sorry if I got that wrong. But he fought. He was the first fight. He did lose via decision, but he was still doing good. It was the wrestling that unfortunately caught him, but he was doing good stand up. He was actually piecing up his opponent too, fairly well. His opponent was just able to utilize his wrestling better. But then we had Devin Ray. Devin Ray, this was his amateur debut, so his first ever fight. And the dude that he fought he took the fight on a week's notice. Not only that, but the dude was a Muay Thai kickboxer too. That was his background. Fucking Devin Ray, in the matter of like 28 seconds in the first round, catches the guy with the head kick. He catches the Muay Thai kickboxer with the head kick, rocks him, and then he gets him into a clinch, grabs him, does a massive slam on him, and then just gets his back, and then he didn't necessarily get like a rear naked choke, but it was like a neck crank where he just kind of was just cranking his neck back and twisting it back, which for those people who aren't familiar with MMA, something like that, it's not necessarily gonna cut off your esophagus to where you can't breathe, but it's the way that it's affecting your neck, because you're gonna be twisting your neck in a way it's not supposed to. Like, he's literally cranking it like he's gonna break it, and so it hurts a lot. I've been caught in that position a lot of times, and it can definitely be painful, and it lingers too. You'll feel it for a good few days. But he managed to get the W. 28 seconds in the first round for his amateur debut. The fucking crowd went crazy. Everybody from Lake Havasu City were going crazy. There was just such a stacked crowd over there, and it was just so cool. And then we had Patrick Boffman, my man. He fought he was the third fight. He fought Matthew Stanger, which he's actually a really cool dude. He was super chill. I even interviewed him. He asked to be on the show and whatnot. And, I mean, I still would have him on. I wasn't sure if it'd be a little awkward considering that I managed Patrick, and then Matt Stanger, he's his opponent, and also working MMA stalker, like trying to make sure to be unbiased and not playing favoritism or anything. But he's honestly just a really chill dude. After the episode that I recorded with Patrick, Matt actually reached out to him and say, "Hey, dude, I watched the whole thing. It was fucking awesome. I happily 100% agree. Let's meet in the middle. Let's just fucking bang it out. Let's put on a show." And that's essentially what happened. And Patrick actually got the W. It was his light heavyweight debut as well, because before he fought heavyweight. But it was his light heavyweight debut, and then they were kind of going back and forth, but then like towards like 30 seconds in the first round, Patrick caught him with a clean, slick right hand down the middle. The cameras didn't even pick it up. That's how clean and slick it was. Like, it's just all of a sudden, they're kind of near the cage. Patrick has a bit of his back to the cage, and then there's a clean little, just straight down the middle that Matt did not expect at all. I mean, like, the cameras barely pick it up. All of a sudden, boom, he got rocked. He was wobbling, and then he fell to the ground as Patrick started attack. And then it was just Patrick went just hammering down on him on the ground and pound, just constant hits. And they stopped the fight. So it was a TKO, 45 seconds of the first round. It was fucking awesome. I was so happy for him, too. He definitely deserved that win, and he busted his ass. He busted his ass off for it.